Hello and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global, and I invite you to kick off your heels, get comfortable, and be ready to receive the golden nuggets that are shared as you listen in to candid conversations I have with fascinating women from around the globe. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, humanitarians, athletes, and a whole lot of regular people. They will keep you riveted as they let their guard down and open up on aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure success, and what they have learned along the way. My intent is that our conversations will inspire you to embrace opportunities and possibilities beyond the limits of your imagination, because I know that this is where we reclaim our power. I want you to reclaim your power, your strength, and vulnerability to stand in your truth and propel yourself towards the life that you dream to live. Well, hello and welcome to our wonderful listeners of Women's Biz Global with Annie Gibbins. Our podcast is called Memoirs of Successful Women because that's what I absolutely love doing. It's my weekly happy place where I get to hang out with empowered women who are seriously sharing their journeys of shattering visible and invisible glass ceilings in their own authentic way. They are such interesting conversations, and I love the feedback that I get from our listeners all around the world. You are going to love listening to today's fascinating guest. Her name is Danielle M. Orsino. She's a fantasy novelist whose lifelong vision is to create whimsical realms that her readers can escape to. Oh my goodness. Don't you just love a bit of escapism? I've just been on a holiday in Central Australia, and I tell you what, I just love to just bury my head into a book and just kind of get into another place. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today. So welcome to our podcast, Danielle.
Thank you so much for having me. Can't wait to jump in and get all into it.
It is fun to jump in, isn't it? I know that you have just got such a gift of using your compelling word weaving, we'll call it, in a whole lot of different varieties of styles, from Chris Claremont and George Pérez, both famous comic book writers, to Anne Rice and Wonder Woman. Oh my goodness, you're all over different styles and ways. So I'd love you to start telling us all, for those of our listeners who just haven't actually understood what we're going to talk about with this kind of writing, let's start talking about cosplay. What is cosplay in writing?
Cosplay is an expression of fandom. So if you are a fan of Wonder Woman, let's say, you dress up as Wonder Woman and it's your expression. So it might be, if you like the Victorian era, you may interpret Wonder Woman in a Victorian way. So you might wear a corset and a bustle, let's say, and maybe a fascinator or something to that effect. And that's how you dress up. You go to conventions that way, or you interpret her however you see her. That's how I do my cosplay. I've done Wonder Woman, I've done Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Black Canary, Firestar from Marvel. I've done all these different versions. And then when I write, I interpreted my cosplay and dressed up as my characters more to see how they would really move, how that would work in fighting scenes and things like that. You know, the whole Incredibles, Edna Mode, no cape, that kind of attitude of, would they wear a cape? Is that even feasible? So my cosplay played into, pun intended, into the costumes that my characters wear, what kind of armor it would be, and how that would really play out and work, and helped embody them a lot.
It's so fascinating. So I'm just wondering now then, so you get totally into character, totally dress up, the full embodiment of that character. This is what cosplay is. Some people just actually do that. You can go to obviously cosplay events around the world, or go in your characters. But for you as a writer, did you actually start with the cosplay that actually went, you know what, now I'm so in character, I could write about this character? Or do you approach it that I want to be able to give this character its full gamut of, every facet of its being, and therefore adding that cosplay element for yourself then helps you write that story better? Which way does it work for you?
It kind of depends on the character, believe it or not. It really kind of can be an either or. If it is a character that does a lot of fight scenes, for instance, Desdemona, she's the captain of the Illuminasca, which in the Fae world is the female fighting force. They're equivalent to kind of what I would think of as our SEALs. They are an all female fighting force. They're the last line of defense for the Court of Light. When I was thinking about her specifically, since all the Illuminasca dress and look identical, I had to think about really what they looked like and how they would fight, because they fight with this martial art called synchron, and it's all the elements. So they have a martial art for fire, for water, for earth, for air. So their outfit really had to be right. It had to, really work for all those elements. So for her, I started dressing up first as her. She was the one that first the costume and cosplay came, and then later everything else worked. Because I had to make her swords. She has these weapons called the Harbinger swords, and they are serrated swords that stick in their boots. So all of that first had to be made, because I had to see in my head, I had this idea, but I'm like, is this even feasible? Would this work? Would they have capes? Would they not? Would they have a hood? What would happen? I had the idea in my head, but it was like, I don't know if this is really going to work. So I dressed up as her first. A lot of the other characters, I was able to write them and then dress up later and kind of figure out, oh, they're more of a gown character. They're more this. Lady Danius, who's on the cover of book 5, which is a Fae, is done. I always had the idea that she had short hair, to whereas all the other ladies of the Court of Light all had long hair. I knew Danius's story and her story of heartbreak. I knew she would chop her hair off because her lover, General Jaden always liked Danius's hair short, long. And so when Danius lost Jaden, I knew that Danius would go and cut her hair short. So I had Danius's picture already. So I dressed up as Danius later and did a photo shoot. So some of them kind of came later, some of them came before. It depended on the character's backstory.
So fascinating. And I'm imagining that because of the style of writing that you have and the audience that you therefore attract, those people are, am I assuming, into cosplay, and they would notice if you're describing in your written narrative different garments or ways of being, than they would know intricately in their own understanding of cosplay with that character.
A lot of the cosplay community supported me because I was one of them to begin with.
Yes.
So they knew me. They knew me, in New York Comic Con, the cosplay community, especially Cosplay Alliance, things like that. They knew me. So they were supportive from day one. The minute the book came out, a lot of them were already in. They were just, hey, one of us is doing this, and they're doing it with passion. So we're already supportive. We're already in, which is why the cosplay community is as amazing as it is. Yeah. So they were already there, and they knew when I started doing the photo shoots as the characters, they could kind of pick up what I was doing. When I did the armor for the Court of Dark, I would joke because the skulls on the armor I made out of resin, and I always joke I use ice cube trays, because the cosplay community, I joked with people and I talked to them. I'm like, I have to make these all this intricate work, and I would talk to them and say, how do I do this? And we all just exchanged ideas, and the idea of doing this using ice cube trays came up, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So that's how I did it. And I often trade that idea off to people who are cosplaying as Mystique and they want to make the belt. I'm like, oh, just use ice cube trays now. And I actually just shared that idea with someone at a convention. So everybody is just so open that it was just a given to support. And then when my new publisher, Four Horsemen, decided to do a limited edition cover set with me on the covers cosplaying of the books, the cosplay community rallied around and was like, that's awesome. Let's, let's get right behind it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it that you're all in, and you've also got a community who really support you, because this community is massive. For those of you who are listening in going, oh, how big is this? I'd love you to tell me, how big is cosplay?
I couldn't put numbers to it because just go like when San Diego Comic-Con in July, just check the news. We're all, it's all over the place.
It's every
GalaxyCon in
yeah,
Raleigh is at the end of July. You'll see it all over the news. New York Comic-Con. I mean, there are conventions where, yes, it's a comic book convention, but the cosplay community takes it over. And
yeah,
the comic book creators love to see people cosplay as characters.
yeah.
That's the artists want to see your interpretation of it. They love it.
So true, so true. And it's such an important thing also from a business perspective, that you've actually got that community on your side, because you could come out and start, trying to do a different sort of way of writing and then putting yourself on that cover. But if you don't have the community who are 100% passionate, all in on this style of, showing up, if you like, they will then sort of sabotage you or not support you. But we can go into that a little bit later. I would love you to talk about females in writing. Is it different as a female writer than a male writer? Do you approach your writing in a different way? I'd love you to share a little bit about that.
I don't know if I approach it. I didn't go in, well, I went in two different ways. I went in thinking because I'm a kick-ass female, I'm going to write kick-ass females. Like that was part of my thought process initially. But it turns out I write male characters better, which messed me up for a little bit because I really went in thinking I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And people tended to be drawn toward my male characters, which set me back for a second because I was like, what am I doing wrong here? But it wasn't that. It was just, I didn't think of it like that. I really went in trying to write strong female characters, which I succeeded in, but it turned out I did write men from a different perspective. My Dark Fae King, King Jarvok, there is a certain comic book influence to him. He's been compared a lot to Magneto from the X-Men. You might not agree with his methodology, but he does have his kin's best interests at heart. But I tended to turn the narrative on him in the sense that in a lot of books, the Dark Fae King is a player. He's going around betting everybody. Mine is not. Mine's a virgin. He's never slept with anybody. He's not into sleeping with anybody. He's into conquering and protecting his people. That is his main focus. And he's got so much emotional baggage that he can't be bothered. So a lot of my male characters are a little different. They're skewed a little differently. Same thing with my female characters. I did not want them fighting over men. That was not going to be my Fae narrative. Because in a lot of the Fae books, it's all about smut. It's all about, I've got to find love. My females did not have time. I did not have them fighting over a guy. They were about their female bond and their friendship. That's what it was rooted in. And it was rooted in found family. Yes, I have backstabbing going on. There's a lot of political intrigue, but it's the females working together and seeing where they can go. And Aurora, my main protagonist, Queen Aurora, she's naive, but the naivete comes more from she's dealing with her own hurt. And there are times where you want to go, come on, girl, wake up. Come on, really. But she's still got like a group of girls supporting her. And that's where I kind of wanted to go more with the female male aspect instead of your typical, the Fae King, is brooding and he's betting everybody. He's brooding. He's brooding. He's still the guy that we all know we should stay away from. There's no doubt. We all know he's a bad boy and we're like, we really shouldn't be going after this. But it's his damage.
Yeah.
And he's not just a sex trope. I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So I approached them a little bit differently. And I wanted people to say, I know that character. I have a friend like that. I know a guy like that. That's more what I wanted from my characters.
So you're actually in a position of real empowerment, that you set the tone of how you want women and men to show up in the universe that you're creating, that you have a real influence on the role of the female protagonist, particularly in the area of fantasy, that you can change that narrative that has been historically there, and then make sure it's more progressive, more empowering. It's not about wait till I get saved by the man. It's actually about, showing up as that kick-ass woman, that Wonder Woman, that woman who can do things in her own way, and finding that sense of self and uniqueness. I love it. Do you just get off on that going, oh, how can I actually really push the boundaries of that female protagonist in your books?
I didn't sit back and think I'm going to set out to change it all. I just thought about the women I want to see and who influenced me. That's kind of how I approached it. I didn't necessarily say I'm going to change the world. I mean, I'd love to, but I'd like to tell you it's that deep. It wasn't that deep. But I just thought about the books I want to read and who I want to see out there. My whole thing was my girls are busy and they don't have time to swipe right or left. Like that was my first thought. It was especially in Locked Out of Heaven. They are losing their whole identity. Their whole lives are just completely in disarray. They're not thinking about, I need to go get me some. They're thinking about, I have to do something and I'm not going to sit idly by. That was their first thought. Once they get past Locked Out of Heaven, they're starting to come into their own, and then more stuff happens. By the time they get to From the Ashes, you know, a marriage of political convenience presents itself, but once again, it's Aurora's idea. It's not Jarbox. And that was the other thought, was I wanted, when we finally get to an enemies to lovers trope, it still takes a while to build, but the idea of we're going to have this union, it's Aurora's idea. It is not Jarbox. I didn't want the male to present it. It's Aurora going, you know what? We've spent all this time fighting. Imagine if we actually helped each other. And it's her idea. And he's kind of like, what? I'm sorry. Like he's like, what? Did you say help? He's got the cold feet, but it's not the fear of commitment thing from him. It's more like, we just spent hundreds of years like bloodthirsty battling. He's like, you want, you know, he's more like, I'm not emotionally mature enough to handle this, but it's her saying, I got this. That's okay. And the female taking the lead on it. And even his closest advisor is a female. So it was more about putting the women around that could carry the story, and the men being there not as just trophies, but kind of giving you those moments of, yeah, a guy would do that. Yeah, that's typical. Yep.
I relate to that person.
Yeah, to where every woman could go, I know somebody like that. Yep. I know exactly where she's at. And then the guys who have read it have gone, yeah, I've done that. Yeah. Yep. And I've had guys tell me that. Yeah. Where they've been like, I've done that. Yeah, I know somebody just like that. Or I've needed to be brought down that peg, or I've needed a woman to bring me up, and then I've had to tell her to back off.
Yeah.
So it was more about that dynamic.
Yeah, it's a fantastic dynamic that you can actually have characters that you so relate to in the present time, you know, in your own communities, in your own lives, but also be reading it in a fantasy, you know, book, that you still see the realness of those human characters while being in a, you know, in a different sort of, you know, fantasy environment. I'd love you to therefore share a little bit about the writing process. So as an author, you know, do you spend more time trying to create the scene? Is the writing process different for a fantasy novelist, if you like, to be able to create all of these progressive themes and entities? Is it different from someone else writing, you know, a biography or a business book or whatever, you know? So the actual mechanics of writing, how do you approach that from your area of expertise?
Research is done either way. I think there's one fallacy out there, is that if you write fantasy, you don't do research. We do just as much research, because even though the world is fake, we're still building it. So even though I might not have currency that exists, I still have to come up with an economic system. So I still have to figure this out, or my magical system has to work. I can't just be like, oh, they do magic. There you go. That's my answer. I have to figure out, well, where does the magic come from?
Yeah.
So I have to build it, whether it's their chakras, whatever, that still exists. So I still have to do my research. Or in my case, if it's taking place in Tudor England, during Tudor times, I have to research Tudor London, Tudor England, and what happened during that time. I have to make sure historically. So that all is the same. As for the writing process, everybody is different. My friend, an author, C.R. Rice, coins the phrase chaos writer. She's a chaos author, and I'm not as chaotic as she is, but I'm pretty darn close. I don't write in order. I don't sit there and go, chapter 1. No. I just pick up and start writing, and wherever it is, and then I go back and put them all in order. I have an idea of where it's going, but just kind of happens.
You're really in the flow. It's like if I'm in the flow, I'm just going to let it all out, and it will then come into context at a later stage that you then put it all together. That is quite a different style. I'm imagining also adding in martial arts into your writing. I mean, that's a real challenge. It's a real gift to be able to do that, because it's a hard thing. I know when you're watching, if you're watching it, you can see so much visually, but if you're reading it, has that been a skill that you've had to develop? How have you gone about sort of adding that in to your reading and to your writing, so that those reading it, sort of flicking through those pages, feel like they're in that battle?
I videotape everything. So if the fight scene is here in my head, I don't do sweeping battles. That's the first thing. I don't do Lord of the Rings, we're all on horseback with bow and arrows and spears and stuff, because I have no experience with that. So I stay away from it because I don't know it. Now, dragons, we'll put dragons aside for a second. But when it comes to a fight scene, we all love our superhero movies. But the thing that I've noticed in a couple of them is all we see is a fist and a cape. And then we're just like, whoa, what happened here? I know something happened, but I don't know. I hate that. If I want to see a fight scene, I want to see the movement of it. My first Kung Fu instructor was Sifu Vincent Lin, who is one of the best out there. I mean, if you look at his movies, he was in Operation Condor with Jackie Chan. He's been in a bunch of movies with Cynthia Rothrock. He's poetry in motion. I was honored enough and grateful and blessed enough to have time with him. He's just an amazing person to watch do martial arts. So my time with him really influenced how I do everything. And then my wushu training and things. So what I do is I approach each fight scene as if it's going to be on screen. And I take it down to just a couple. There's usually only between 2 and 4 people in that fight. And I'll mark it in my head. And then I go out, I take it, my camera, my phone, and I set it up on a tripod and I act it out.
Wow.
And I watch it. And from there, I can then sit and write it. And we just keep doing it until it makes sense. But I want the reader to feel like they're right in the middle of it and they're not watching a fist. They're actually sitting back going, oh, I'm right here. Wow, that guy just hit that one. And okay, that elbow just hit that jaw. Holy cow, I'm right here in the middle of it. And I think the best compliment I got in a reviewer that said, these fight scenes are better than any Marvel movie.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, we're done. I'm like, that's it. I was like, I'm done. We're out. Cool. And I did the same thing with when I wrote the novella Fire, Ice, Acid, and Heart, which was all dragon fights. I actually bought little dragon toys and sat there acting them all out to the point where I had a straw and I would fill it up with water and spit it at a dragon. And I'm like, how does acid land? What am I doing? If I couldn't figure that out, I wasn't going to go any further with the novella. The novella took me 10 times longer than I thought it would. So I was like, oh, this will be so easy. 25,000 words. I got this. Months later, and I'm still sitting there with the dragon toys going, oh my God, just eat them. Just eat them. I don't care anymore. Like, I was battling them and I'm like, I was like, you're dead. Done. Like it was to that point. Because I was like, I can't come up with anything, but I actually used martial arts with the rider. And so we put it all together, but still I had to act everything out in order to make it realistic.
Danielle, you started by saying that most people think there's not much research or it's easier to write. I'm thinking it's so much harder to write. I'm surprised that people would think that, because to imagine that totally different um, dystopic environment, to imagine all of that and to have all the authenticity. So let's look at the challenges of this. You're going to get the haters. You're going to get the people who say that's not correct. You're going to get the people who say, oh, well, I see it differently, because you're one person's perspective. So although you put your heart and your soul and you've done all the work, you're incredibly accomplished for a reason, you will still get the challenges, right? And how do you actually cope with that? Even though you're an expert in your area, and as you grow your career, you'll be getting better and better at your craft, you will still get that, I'm imagining, that imposter syndrome sort of going, well, why aren't people seeing it the way I do? Why do they challenge me on this?
The best advice I got was from my developmental editor, Cleet Barrett-Smith. He told me, think of book one as a yearbook. He's like, and then start to think of all your books as yearbooks. He's like, think of it as your yearbook picture. You can't go back and change it. That's where you were at that moment in time. He's like, just take it for what it is. He's like, the perm, the blue eyeshadow, whatever it was, that was in fashion at that moment. You took the picture, you thought you looked real good. Move on to the next one. He's like, you wouldn't erase it. He's like, just like you wouldn't go back and erase high school. That was your moment. Move on. And I was like, the minute I thought of it like that, I was like, okay, because I kept wanting to redo things. I kept thinking like, oh, I shouldn't have written that. And I wrote this and I found mistakes. And he was like, stop. He's like, you wouldn't erase high school. You can't erase this. It is what it is. Move on. So I started looking at it that way. I've learned I have to stay off Goodreads. Goodreads is not my friend. It just isn't. It's kind of like another thing Cleet said was, he's like, you wouldn't walk down the street in an outfit and want to hear what every single person is thinking at that moment about your outfit. He's like, you think you look hot. Leave it at that.
That's
and
it.
I'm like, okay. He's like, that's Goodreads. I don't need to know what everybody's thinking. I don't want to be validated. So the way I look at it is, I don't want to hear all the good. I don't want to hear all the bad. I'll stick to straight in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I do. Not that I don't think everybody's opinion, it's just, I don't want to be controlled by validation. So I just kind of leave it. The only thing that I will say bothered me is when book one, when Locked Out of Heaven came out by my first publisher, they just clicked the wrong button and put me in Christian fiction. It was not meant for anything. It was just one of those Amazon moments of they were going through the niches, and it stayed in Christian fiction for a little while. Yeah. Every right winger came after me to the point where I'm still on blasphemy lists. Every now and then I still get like hate mail. I've had death threats. I've had groups come after me, the Guns of God, with like pictures of handguns and birthdays written under it. People telling me I have this hate relationship with God. And I'm like, you guys understand it's a fantasy book, right? Like I've had to really, I had to build, because at first I was so bothered by it. And then finally I started getting a lot of DMs about people saying they wanted my home address because they wanted to send me Bibles and this. And I finally said, enough. I just perfected an answer where I just turned around and said, Lucifer has not told me what realm of hell I'll be living in once we're married, but as soon as he does, I'll let you guys know. For now, we're registered at Bed Bath & Beyond. Please send towels. There's a lack of towels in hell. And that's my answer for everything now, because if I don't laugh about it, I will get upset.
Could destroy you. It could destroy you. And I think that is such a gold nugget for our listeners here. Think about that. When you rely that subjective view, everything you do will have a subjective response from someone else, the prism that they look in, their view on life. So many, a zillion ways make them think the way they do. And so therefore, if you rely on pleasing all, you will always fall down. You'll always be that's what makes you chaotic. That's what destroys you. That's what's exasperating. I love what you've done there. You've actually gone and said, I'll just be in my lane and these are my main avatar, if you like, or the others are outliers, and they are valid, but they're outliers, and I think that just gives you a lot of calm. It just says, if the majority are on my, side, then that's what you're wanting, because at the end of the day, this is business as well. And that's who your main audience is, the people who will go, yeah, good on you, well done. I might have seen it one a different way. Who hasn't gone to a movie or read a book and sort of thought, oh, well, I would have portrayed it a different way. It's only our own view. But if you ask, that's right. If you asked everyone walking down the street, they would definitely have a different perspective. So own it, gorgeous girlfriend. I love that. I love that. Then you've got to enter the whole world of marketing as well. Oh my goodness, this is challenging because you're a creative, you're an author, and then you then have to be now you're the face of the face of the covers. So you've got a personal brand as well as a professional brand, and you're also then into that whole world. Do you leave that to someone else? Do you dabble in that? Has that been a big challenge for you? How do you approach that whole world? Because it's massive.
I think there's another fallacy that once you write the book, you're done. Like, that's it. That's the biggest myth in the publishing world. Writing the book is like that much of the iceberg. The rest is all marketing, and that's all on you as the author. There's no one to leave it to. It's not the old days of publishing where you got a huge advance and then you sat back and the publishing house was like, we got this. Just be ready for an interview and a book tour. Those days are long gone. That's not happening. No one here is George R.R. Martin where they could just sit back and be like, I'm done. You got 10 years and I'll come out with another one. That's done. We're expected to put out books every 6 months. If we're lucky, it's 6 months. Sometimes it's 4. No, it's on us to do it. I was very, very lucky in the fact that in my publishing house, I met a fellow author, C.R. Rice, who does dystopian YA. And we just clicked. And it finally came to, we're just going to join forces. Like, why can't we? And everybody was like, no, you don't do that. And I'm like, we were very shocked because we were like, why don't we?
Why not?
And they were like, no, you're 2 females. And that was a big thing, was we were females and you're both authors. No, you guys don't join.
You should be
and we found it so weird that they were like, her and I hooked up and we were just like, why don't we just promote each other? Like, why can't we? So we've marketed together, and we do pop-up bookshops together at GalaxyCon, and we take other authors with us and sell the books, and it's for authors by authors. That was our first thing. And then we figured out, there's a lot of other opportunities where 2 women can get together and promote each other. So we're working on a cosplay calendar with both of our characters crossing over and different things like that we can do together. And, cosplay, like I said, possibly, an event, a docuseries that shows what it's like to be authors. Because right now, everybody thinks of, like I said, George R.R. Martin, whether you like or hate or Rowling's, but you think about Stephen King, you think of everybody at the top of the mountain looking down. And then, they want to tell their story of remember when, and it's like, okay, that's great. Remember when you got the mansion, but there's a lot of us at the bottom trying to climb.
Yeah.
What is that climb like? Because I really don't want to hear the story when you're at the top. I want to see you as you're walking the mountain and backsliding a little bit. And what do you have to do now to stand out? That to me is a much more compelling story. And how many times you turn that manuscript in and it gets rejected? What is that like? What is that? And because I have, I meet readers now and they're like, why did you do this with Aurora? Or why is this book only 80,000 words? And I'm like, you want to know something? That book and the 2 before were actually 1 book. But I realized I don't have the readership to carry around a 400,000 page book.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to actually cut you guys all down. So really, Locked Out of Heaven, 9 Eyes of Murphy, and From the Ashes was 1 book. And they're like, really? That was 1 book? And I'm like, yeah. But apparently, you guys won't hang out for 1 book.
You're all too late.
I'm a new author, and none of you will pay $55 for a hardback. So guess what? You're getting 3. And they're like, I didn't know that. And I'm like, and when you all write me and say that there's 2 S's at the end of is, and you want to know why I didn't catch it, it's because I don't quality control it. And
yes.
Like, you don't read your own book? And I'm like, no, I don't. Do you understand? I don't. Like, so you guys can all yell at me for this or for that. I don't read it. I read it when it goes to editing, and it goes through 5 edits.
And they change some bits, and they'll make it perfect for the readership.
Quality control. And then typeset gets it. But if typeset changes it, by the time it goes to the Kindle, then it goes through another one, and then this gets changed. There are glitches, and people are going, I thought you really thought I uploaded it to Amazon, that I typesetted it. And they're looking at me going, you didn't do. So that's why CR and I sat down and I went, no one knows the underbelly. They don't get it. And I'm like, maybe it's time somebody pulls the curtain back and goes, so this is what it's like when we're setting up a GalaxyCon at 7 a.m. and we're here until 1 a.m. doing panels, and it's all to sell. Maybe you sell 100 books.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about marketing that way, but just two women getting together, showing it. Because a lot of people think, you make it on a podcast and they're like, you must sell like 100 books at least in that hour. And you're looking at them going,
I dream. Exactly.
So it's kind of, the marketing is definitely, you're trying to stand out, or you're trying to get Barnes and Noble, and they think just because you write a book, Barnes and Noble is like, come on in. Oh, you wrote a book? The shelf is yours. And you're like, no, and you just put your head down going, yeah. I have people all the time are like, I went into my Barnes and Nobles and you weren't there. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss the invite?
That's right. I must have missed that one. I'd love to have received that message. It's fascinating. It's fascinating what people think is just, it's just looks so easy. It's like, just write the book, put it all together, and then suddenly it appears. And why shouldn't it be everywhere, all over the planet? There are so many aspects, and I'm a publisher as well. And I know that, there's like, if you look at, 80 steps or so to actually make that book, the reality, and it is important. And then you do become, I won't call it a victim, but you have to actually change what your dream is. Your dream might be, that's right, one day I'll sit up there in my ivory tower and I can write this book that everyone will wait for with bated breath and pay the top dollar and be with. But if that's not your reality, you in business, you have to change. You have to put out things more regularly. Modern day businesses, regular touch points, more communication, more waiting. If you chuck that one book into 3, you've got 3 cycles of excitement and energy and promotions and bits and pieces that other people won't realize. So I really appreciate you being able to share that, because it is very, very important for people to realize that's right, that premium success. There's been a lot of times, we're talking about authors now, but it's the same as, I've been a CEO for 12 years. It'd be the same in that sort of situation, that if you're running a big company, you turn up at a conference and everything is done for you. If you're at that little startup company, you're putting up the banners, you're setting up the stand, you're dragging it from your car, you're doing, you're getting
your little wagon.
You got your little wagon, you're creating your own flyers, you've pressed print, you've kind of gone and done all that. That's like, there's so many things that is because people keep showing up. I love what you've actually shared here on collaboration, because I'm a big fan of that women unite together, start finding out where you can support each other, because your audiences will be different. On the face of business, people go, oh, you wouldn't do that, you're both females, you're both competitors, you shouldn't, like it. That is just crazy, because your market will love your product. They'll love product for all their reasons. And so you multiply that out. There is so much power in the collective. Oh my goodness, I totally love that. I'd love to just finish up then of, well, how are you measuring your success as you're still growing? You're sounds like you're pumping these books out, you're really loving it. You're totally in your lane and owning that. What does the next stage look like for you, and how will you measure your success when you look back and go, yeah, this is important to me, this is what matters?
Right now, the next stage is, I would like to grow with CR Rice, and we'd like to grow our own visibility, obviously. I have a game coming out with Meldiverse, Adopt a Dragon, where you can adopt Los, the dragon from Birth of the Fae, and in the AR world. So I think building that platform with Meldiverse is a big deal for me, and seeing where the AR world will go and kind of taking that technology to the next level is very interesting. Obviously, putting out books with quality is very important. Book 6 just came out, Forgive Us, which ends volume 1, and then volume 2, Birth of a Succubus, which takes place in modern day, and the protagonist, Agent Graham, is my patient who started this whole thing. So I'm really excited to see where that goes and build that out. And I have possibly some of my comic book legends, heroes writing the forward for that. So that's kind of, for me, a little bit of a measurement of success in that sense, that they're even considering it is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
That was kind of like, okay, even the fact that they're like, yeah, let me think about it. That's actually, I'm interested. I've read the books. I was kind of like,
woo.
Yeah, it was a little bit, stop right there. Don't say anything else. Like, I was like, I'm good. Like, just the fact that you're saying you've read the books, you're interested, the writing's good. We can leave it at that, and I can back away from this table right now, and we're fine. Like, you don't have to go any further than that. We're cool. That was a moment of like, who I am. I'm not a crazy fan. You're not calling security. I think this is a win on all fronts, so I'm good. We're good on that. I'd like to see a graphic novel, obviously, because that's my world. So comic books to go graphic novel would just be awesome. But I measure success if I'm happy. Yeah, I want money. I'm not going to lie. If I sat here going, oh, I don't need money, that would be the pageant girl answer. I want money. Let's be very clear on that. I would like a house with a backyard for my pups. That's what I'm trying to. Now, do I want George R. R. Martin money? Of course I do. Once again, let's not get it twisted. I would love that. I would love to one day have, an anime of Birth of the Fae, all that stuff. I'm working toward it. But collaborating with CR is one of my major things, because I think together, Wonder Twin Powers activate, we can kind of build each other up. And I think that's one of the things that I don't see enough of in the publishing world. Everybody's worried about there's not enough readers. Believe me, there's more than enough readers.
Yes.
More than enough readers. We can all share just fine. But there is a certain amount of this is mine. And that's what I love about CR, is that that's not an issue between us. She's YA dystopian. I'm considered YA-ish, new adult. They moved me out of adult fantasy and said, you know what, you can go YA. And the YA kind of community is just discovering me. So there is enough, and there's not enough women voices. So I think we need to support each other more, especially in fantasy. There's just not enough. There's romantasy, yes, but we're all getting pigeonholed.
Yes.
So I think we need to kind of scream it from the rooftops a little bit more, and then move it into the comic book industry, because the comic book world is making some strides, but still not enough. So I think that's kind of part of it. But I would just like to, in general, see more of a push. Also for myself, obviously, in getting our voices out there, because in the literary world, it's like, oh, you write romance if you're a woman, or if you write YA, it has to still have a romantic flair. And I know, speaking for CR, like, she doesn't do that. I don't do that. So getting our voices out there and saying, look, we team up and we do great is a big deal for us. And letting other women know you can dip your toe in the fantasy pond and write high fantasy epic, and it's totally cool. You can write kick-ass fight scenes, and you don't have to be labeled an angry woman, which I got labeled for a while. But doing that kind of stuff and having my readers just enjoy my work, that's a measurement of success. Having them really, I have one reader who he jokes with me because he says he listens to Locked Out of Heaven on Audible and constantly gets hit with a badge, for Audible, like that he's a repeat. And he's like, yeah, my badges keep going up, but he's like, I'm just listening to your book. And I said, at this point, I'm like, I'm just going to make you a fae in the fantasy world, because he loves it, and he just keeps reading, listening to it. So I said, I'm just going to make you a fae, because he's just so supportive. So when I hear things like that, it makes me feel good that the book is bringing somebody so much joy that at the end of the day, they can just keep listening to it and discovering new things. So I think that's more a measurement of success. But like I said, don't get it twisted. I still want the money.
Absolutely. Absolutely sure. And I thank you for your honesty there. And that is absolutely important. You find your craft and then you perfect it, yes, to make money, to then, have the lifestyle you're wanting to have, to also to be able to reinvest and to level up. And all of these things do take money to actually reinvest back into your own business and your own craft as well. Partnering up is just such a fantastic principle. And I love that you've done that. I love that success measure is also about just that pure satisfaction. Although you've got the mechanics of, yes, I want my business to do well, and I'd love to be, as famous as possible, and to have that, the thought that someone's actually on Audible listening over and over and over because they go, I just love this book, I love this style, and now I can't wait for the next one. I mean, that's just pure joy. That is pure joy. And there are so many measures of success, and I always love finishing up with that question to all of my beautiful guests, because we all measure our success in different ways, and all of it is right. None of it is wrong. It is what makes us tick. It's what gets us up every day. It's what helps us bounce back after people criticize or tell you the way you should be. I love the opportunity that you have in these books to be able to really portray a progressive modern woman, because I think it's so important that the young girls in this world actually see examples of powerful female characters in their books, in their reading, in their media, in movies. And I can see that all of yours has the opportunity that once you've got a book could easily transfer to the screen at some stage as well. Thank you so much for being such a delightful guest. I have absolutely loved our conversation today. It's been quite educational for myself. I know I'm going to have some more engrossed conversations now with my adult children, who all talk about cosplay and Comic-Con and all these things, and I'm going, I don't know what you're talking about half the time, but I actually love the whole concept, and I love the depth that you go into your craft to make sure that it really meets your readers' desires, so that they can actually take themselves to that escapism and to really enjoy their time there. So thanks for being on the show, Danielle.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global. And if you would like to fast track your future success, hop on over to womensbizglobal.com. Find out about all things women's biz, and most importantly, take the opportunity to have a free trial of Women's Biz Tribe. I look forward to seeing you online very soon. Until next episode, bye.